Ladies and gents, welcome back. We are in a propaganda war at the moment. It's insane what you might see in print these days. Now, most of us are just ignoring most of the publications that are saying some of the most wild things these days. But I think it's important to actually pay attention to what's being said and where. We have this article, and it just blew my mind when reading it. This is from Alberta Prosperity Project, posting this on Twitter. The state-sponsored Toronto Star, Susan Delacourt, are trying to once again tie Russia to the Freedom Convoy, despite this being investigated and totally debunked by FinTrack, CBC Ombudsman, and by GoFundMe and GiveSendGo officials. Now, I'm going to get into the article in a minute here, and where it goes at the very end is just like... It's something out of 1984. It is ridiculously insane. Anyway, we'll get into that in a minute. But the CBC admits no evidence of Russian meddling in Canada over Freedom Convoy concerns. So this is things that I've been reporting over the course of the year. The state broadcaster ombudsman had ruled that the CBC breached journalistic standards by linking Russia to the Freedom Convoy protests and supporters. Again, I reported on this previously. GoFundMe said under oath that 88% of donated funds originated in Canada and 86% of donors were from Canada, despite the media running with this concept that it was foreign donated. This was a foreign influence thing. It wasn't. Deputy Director of Intelligence for Canada's Financial Intel Agency, FinTrack, Barry McKillop, says many donations to the Freedom Convoy were not funding terrorism or money laundering. I believe they just wanted to support the cause, said Barry McKillop. And yeah, this is Deputy Director saying that. And I'll leave a link in the description to this tweet thread where you can check out all the different things. Now, why are they trying to tie this to Russia again? What is the whole point of this? If you check out my other video from this morning, I had a conversation with lawyer Wes Musio, where we were talking about property rights and the fact that the Canadian government is actually going after oligarchs under a sanctioned individuals method of actually removing their property, any property that they have in Canada, and liquidating it and then using what the money for what they want. Now, the big fear was that they would do this to Canadian citizens. And well, here we are. We're trying to tie Canadians to Russia somehow loosely because they disagree with the government. But we can get into, here's another instance exactly of this. This is from Blacklock's Reporter. Go follow them. They're amazing journalists in Canada. Documents, Elizabeth May circulated cabinet false rumors of Kremlin involvement in the Freedom Convoy. Hair-raising, said May, who supported the Emergencies Act to crush that peaceful protest in Ottawa last year in February. But here we go. Here's the Freedom Convoy protest had Mélanie Joly and other foreign ministers all worried about the same thing. Now we're going to get into this. And this, if at any point this sounds like it reads like a fan fiction, well, that would be why, because it's fiction what's being written in this article, and it's absolutely insane. Let's go over some of this. Most of the world's eyes were focused on Ukraine last February when the convoy protests were disrupting life in Canada. Right out of the gates, everybody was focused on, not everybody was focused on Ukraine. Everybody was focused on their own individual lives and how it had been disrupted by the federal government and the provincial governments and everybody with these COVID measures that were going on for way too long. People were, they played by the rules. They played by the rules until the rules just got way too fierce, and people all over the world were saying enough is enough. Canada, in particular, set the stage for this. But yeah, the convoy protests were disrupting life in Canada. No, their lives were disrupted. This is something that happened. But Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly said she was fielding questions from her international counterparts about what the heck is going on in this country. Well, what the heck is going on? French Foreign Minister Catherine Colonna told Joly the so-called Freedom Convoy, of course, so-called Freedom Convoy, bore a strong resemblance to protests being seen in her own country. The foreign ministers from Britain and New Zealand said the same thing. These people are so out of touch with their own base of people, citizenry, that they don't even understand what's going on with these people. You can go talk to them. You can go ask them what's up with what's going on in their lives and why they're upset about anything. You can go ask them. Most of them would tell you, well, you've been encroaching in my space for way too long. You are disrupting my life. A linking concern for all of them, said Joly, was the role of disinformation in the protests. The way crowds were being mobilized by campaigns to spread mistruths and even outright lies about COVID-19 vaccines, as well as conspiracy theories about governments. I don't know. What conspiracy theories about governments might you be concerned about? Maybe that all the governments were in lockstep doing the same thing against their own public. And yeah, people might tend to say, hey, it looks like everybody's on the same agenda here. This isn't good. None of them have ruled out the prospect of foreign states such as Russia are feeding these campaigns. Of course, the narratives behind the convoy are spreading or can be spread around the world because of this disinformation campaign by foreign states, Joly said. So even though she was not on the front lines here in Canada, she wasn't even in the country. How is she surprised she doesn't know what's going on here? She wasn't even here. When the convoy protests hit, the domestic protests were rippling across the world stage last February as part of a bigger worry about what Russia was doing to destabilize the world order. Why are you using these terms? This is really ridiculous. But what? No, it had nothing to do with Russia. This has been proven again and again. It is completely a Canadian movement. It was Canadian truckers that were tired of what was going on at the border. And there's a lot of people as Arrive Can came into play, and this was all happening. Again, if you look at the testimonies of the people at the Emergencies Act inquiry, the way it got started was a lot of the truckers saw that there was a border guards at the border that had a strike, and they noticed that was effective, and they said, hey, this is effective. Maybe we can do something similar. Joly was talking to a Microsoft executive, because, that's how you really get to the feel of what's going on in your own country this year, who shared some findings with her on the tech giant's research into sources of disinformation. The research showed that Russia was churning out 2 different messages about COVID-19 vaccines, telling the domestic audience that they were safe, but telling foreign audiences that they were dangerous, with the notable exception of Cuba, where the vaccines are safe messages were circulated because, a communist country, right? Okay, sure. Microsoft Vice Chair Brad Smith published some of the findings in a mid-year blog post on how how the Ukraine crisis was playing out as a cyber war. Again, most people didn't have Ukraine or any of this stuff in their purview. I didn't know anything about it, and I was fully in support of the convoy. None of this matters. It still doesn't matter what's going on to the average Canadian citizen. These ongoing Russian operations on Ukraine build on recent sophisticated efforts to spread false COVID narratives in multiple Western countries, Smith wrote in June this year. This is now talk about conspiracy theories, right? Talk about conspiracy theories. This concept that what you think happened, what was going on, where the government was encroaching and overreaching into people's lives, and then people were upset with that, and so they went to protest against government initiatives and government policy. No. What was going on, they want you to believe, is that Russia got into the minds of all these people and conspired with them to have a protest in Ottawa, and then subsequent protests all around the country, and then all around the world. Who's the conspiracy theorist now? Who's wearing the tinfoil hat? This is just absolutely ridiculous. So it goes on to say a whole lot about Russia regime war depends on lies and deception. Joly news release stated in October, yada, yada. The pandemic has created even more of an issue than the use of social media, she said. The fact that people can, to a certain extent, act with total impunity behind avatars is a real problem. So Jordan Peterson recently got himself in a lot of trouble making statements such as this. But where it really gets crazy, the battle could pit the Canadian government against the new owner of Twitter. And this, the concern about social media is one that Joly has carried over into this job at Foreign Affairs. From her original cabinet post as Heritage Minister, her successor in that role, Pablo Rodriguez, is getting ready to tackle online hate in legislation next year, and Joly is keeping a close eye on how that goes. So what Pablo Rodriguez is not just working on Bill C-11, Bill C-18, but apparently working on some online hate bill that will squash Canadian dissent or any way of expressing your own opinions in Canada. Just get rid of it. We can't have any of that stuff because, you know, if anybody speaks their mind, it may be Russia actually speaking through them. The battle could pit Canadian government against the owner of Twitter, Elon Musk, who tweeted in mid-December that an online harms bill would be an attempt to muzzle the voice of the people of Canada. I agree with that. Musk, who spent the time in December shutting down accounts of selected users and journalists on Twitter, knows a thing or two about muzzling. Now, at no point in this article do they go into the fact that those journalists that were suspended and later had their accounts reinstated were actually breaking terms of service by doxing individuals. This is a thing that of course they don't want to mention in this because it doesn't go with the narrative that they're putting out here. But this is where it really starts to get dark. Joly believes that in the next year will be as tough as 2022, largely because the war in Ukraine will continue to play out, causing havoc in the economy and anxiety worldwide. She's confident that the war will come to an end, though she's not making any predictions about timing. She is also hoping Canada will be playing an important role in the peace process, whatever that turns out to be. Now, mind you, Canada is not an active participant in any war right now in Ukraine or Russia. We're not at war with Russia as a country. This has not been declared or anything like that. This is some sort of proxy for politicians to play out war games. But this is, by all intents and purposes, not our conflict. But here we are. What she does know and says often is that the world is a more unstable place this year than it was last. 2023 will be an important year. We will be defined by world events, she said. I never thought I would say this as a politician, but you actually need to support the war to get peace. Whoa! Those are some words. Holy cow. Where did we hear that before? Well, if you've ever read the book 1984, you might get the motto, the Ingsoc slogan, the full motto of the English Socialism Party, or Ingsoc, that rules Oceania in the novel 1984 is: war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. These are the words that are coming from our politicians here in Canada, and that is where we are today. Pay attention to what they have to say because they are saying some strong words. Absolutely. So I wanted to spread this message off to you guys, let you know what they're actually saying. I know a lot of people are largely ignoring what's happening in these mainline publications, but this is what's being said and this is being spread. So anyway, leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think of this whole concept. This is just insane to me. But leave a comment in the comment section down below. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, please consider today being the day that you subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. It lets you know when I go live, and we'll see you in the next one. Keep on trucking.